Hello, horror heads, and welcome to the show. We've got a great one for you this week, so I won't keep you waiting for long. We are joined by the host of a podcast called This Is Rad, plus he had a hand in several other things that I'm a fan of, the exceptionally rad guy himself, Mr. Kyle Clark. He chose this week's featured movie, which is one of his personal favorites and is a largely forgotten gem of the 80s. We're glad to shed some light on it and help share its big-haired horror goodness with all of you. Now, when you're listening to this episode, we're probably going to mention our upcoming Halloween block of movies. When you hear it, don't be alarmed. We're not talking about next Halloween, Halloween of 2018. We're talking about our previous Halloween special. Just to let you guys know, a little peek behind the curtain. Sometimes we record these things in a different order than we release them. Because, you know, our recording might depend on if we have a special event coming up or a themed month, or if our guest has a certain schedule they need to stick to. So just want to make sure you're aware of that. Don't freak out. We're talking about Halloween past, not Halloween coming. So with all that out of the way, let's get it on. My name is Sheldon, and this is The Graveyard Shift, Horror with Sheldon and Mike. Hello, horror heads, and thank you for joining us on the Graveyard Shift Horror Podcast, where each week we watch a movie from the horror category, and then we blast it with cosmic radiation until it either turns into a pile of dust or a flesh-crazed zombie. Spoiler alert, I may have given you a hint about what movie we watched for this week. And yes, I said we. No one wants to work the Graveyard Shift alone. Please say hello to my favorite space zombie, my co-host Mike.
Hey, everybody.
How are you doing today, my friend?
Pretty darn good. Saw an excellent movie. Can't wait to talk about it. I am pumped.
That is good. Me too. We got to watch a largely forgotten 80s gem, and I cannot wait to talk about it. So why don't you tell everyone what we have for them this week?
Today's episode is Day of the Teenage Mutant Comet Zombies, because we watched The Night of the Comet.
Yes, we did, and this movie was selected by someone who is joining us today. Please say hello to the host of the This Is Rad Podcast, and he may have had some involvement in some other things you may have heard of, like Hidden America with Jonah Ray, Talking Dead, The Nerdist, just to name a few. Actor, writer, and comedian, and totally rad guy, Kyle Clark.
Well, hello!
Kyle, welcome to the Graveyard Shift.
Hey, it's nice to be here. I like this virtual graveyard we've set up. The ground fog is lovely. I find that the craggy hill with which we have set our lanterns upon to take our rest and talk about our film is really quality atmosphere.
Great. Now I got to add some after sound effects of a fireplace crackling.
Exactly. Wouldn't be more of like a campfire.
Yeah.
Well, if you're starting a campfire in a graveyard, I think there's some laws being broken, but...
Oh, I mean, that's the best kind. That's how else is our coven supposed to meet if we can't have fire to dance around in the nude?
I'm still picturing a fireplace in the middle of a graveyard. It seems a little weird.
It's actually it's hyper menacing, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can look at, like, most of the people where, like, you can just, like, assume that they haven't been interred and you can just... Or haven't been cremated, and you can be like, Huh? You thought you got past that. You thought you got spared.
So, Kyle, why don't you tell our listeners a little about yourself and This Is Rad, just for our listeners that may not be familiar with you.
Sure, which I imagine would be most people. My name's Kyle Clark. I'm a writer and a comedian from Los Angeles. And I have a podcast called This Is Rad that is a celebration of enthusiasm, because I feel like the internet is full of an awful lot of snark and complaining, and I feel like you actually learn a lot more about people when you learn about the stuff they like and the stuff they're into, especially like the stuff they never get to talk about because either no one's interested or they just it's such a niche thing. And myself and my go ahead, please.
I don't know what internet you're talking about. Mine's full of cat videos and horror movies.
I mean, that's what I've set up my Facebook to, but it took a lot of blocking and muting. It just handcrafted artisanal muting. Yeah, and it's a fun show. I do it with my co-host Matthew Burnside and my girlfriend producer Natalie Hazen, because she's smarter than us and does the heavy lifting. And without her, we'd be dead. But it's a fun show, and we are about to start our Halloween block programming. Halloween's my favorite holiday. I'm a ride or die horror fan for life. And so we do a whole Halloween block. We've got some really insane and amazing stuff. We did a Creepypastas episode that'll be out by the time this is out. That was a lot of fun, and we really kind of got deep into that, which is, I think, kind of fascinating, because it's been interesting to watch kind of the urban legend and oral tradition kind of like mutate online into stuff that sometimes is terrifying, and sometimes is a 13-year-old on some kind of drugs typing into a keyboard a bunch of racial slurs.
And I find it weird why you would be doing about to do a Halloween block now in November, which it is right now.
Oh, is that when this is out?
When we're doing this, and
really
I'll just
me on
pull
that
that curtain. I'll just pull that curtain back.
Wow, you guys do
There
a
we go.
deep bench.
Great, now I gotta find another sound effect.
God, how far in advance do you guys record?
We're only recording this one in advance just because we are literally in the middle of doing our Halloween block ourselves.
Oh, I love the idea of a Halloween block on a horror podcast.
Yeah,
it is a special. It's a special block. Sheldon, tell him what the theme is, because it's a pretty good one.
Well, what we're doing, and of course our listeners already know because they've just listened to it. We've just, we're doing the timey-wimey thing where you guys have already just finished up our final Halloween episode. But our theme this year for our very first October was Halloween That's Not Halloween, where we covered 4 movies that take place on Halloween but are not part of the Halloween Michael Myers franchise.
Oh, okay. Does Season of the Witch come in?
We're going to talk about that one down the road. That one's actually been requested by our listeners quite a bit because they want to know what our thoughts are.
I effing love that movie, and it's made me really happy that it started to kind of gain like a cult acceptance, like that, and like The Exorcist 3 and Texas Chainsaw 2 as like 3 movies that like people are finally starting to like embrace as being awesome movies.
Well, I love the story about Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, because a lot of people, like, their first complaint, it didn't even have Michael Myers, it's not Halloween.
Let's face it, most of the Halloween movies with Michael Myers would be better without Michael Myers in them.
After number 2, yeah. It would be great. Well, I just like the idea that John Carpenter, his original idea, and most, the hardcore horror fans know this, is that he never intended Halloween to continue on with Michael Myers. His idea was to do a yearly anthology where every Halloween a new movie would be released by a different director under the Halloween banner, but would be a completely different story.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you think about how that is basically now what so many like horror programs are.
Yeah, and it works for like the majority of them. I mean, look at American Horror Story.
Yeah.
And but people couldn't, it's not fully to blame on the audience either, on the fans. It was poor marketing because, and they didn't have the internet back then in the 80s like we do now, where you can find out all this stuff. But yeah, people just couldn't get on board with a Halloween movie without Michael Myers. They preferred the rehashing year after year the serial killer, immortal serial killer thing. So there we go.
Yeah, we already had Friday the 13th, and they did one without Jason too? Was it 5 or?
But
4?
5, there is still a hockey mask killer. Technically, if you want to get into it, part 1 is the part that would be that version.
Yeah, well, part 1 was his mom, but like after the main guy was established, 5 was what the counselor or like one of the parents.
It's I believe it's one of the it's the paramedic, isn't it? Or it's somebody you see like early in the movie, and it like kind of telegraphs it, and then you watch the rest of the movie and forget it. Fun fact: that is the highest body count of any Friday the 13th film.
Yeah, it just goes to show Jason's a friggin' slacker.
Well,
when your impersonator does better work than you,
he does the best he can. He's living out there on his own. Yes.
Yeah, he does pretty good. Are you guys? Have you guys played the Friday the 13th video game yet?
I have not yet, sadly. I'm dying to.
Yeah, me too. It's just something I haven't gotten around to, and like I keep seeing videos posted, and everyone's talking about it, and I'm like, this looks like my game, like something that I would absolutely love, and I would play this and think like I never have to play another video game again because I was just Jason Voorhees. But I'm starting to get a little slack on my video game time.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, you run away from Jason or you become Jason. That is just an awesome premise that really could have been touched upon in the original Friday the 13th instead of having a big purple jumpsuit guy.
Yeah.
So back to This Is Rad. Kyle, you said that you're working on your Halloween block right now, which to our fans has just happened. Just finished up. So yeah, so what do you what's your plans? Can you give us like a little hint about what you're covering for that?
Yeah, I mean we've got a couple that we're waiting to confirm on. We just recorded our second one, which again they're all out by now. But we did Ghost Stories of the Comedy Store, and we went with Steve Simone, who's a big an amazing comedian, and he's a paid regular over there. And we went and sat in the basement of the Comedy Store, and he told us about all sorts of the crazy like paranormal happenings that have happened over the years to him there, because he worked kind of every job you can have there, and that building is haunted as F.
Nice.
There's definitely moments where like the room we're sitting in is underneath the original room, so you'll hear chairs creak from people sitting in the room above us. But like the number of times where it happened right at the perfect time, so that we could all be like, "No," was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
As long as you don't hear like an overweight, long-haired blonde comedian with like a scarf on his head going like, "Ah!"
That's a constant fear when I'm there.
Hell! You know what it looks like? It looks like the fucking altar again.
Yeah, I'm digging This Is Rad. I'm catching up. I'm just about caught up right now. I just actually at work today. I finished up your Step Up episode.
Oh, thanks, man.
Step Up movies.
With Bibbs, that was a lot of fun because when he first pitched that to me, I was like, "Oh, I have made a terrible mistake." And he's right. Like they are amazing movies.
And I discovered, and it was a revelation to me that I am listening to his podcast today. I am one of the few people in existence, apparently, that is completely 100% familiar with the 100 Lives of Blackjack Savage.
Ooh. Did you see it when it was first on?
I did. I saw the actual premiere. And 12-year-old me at the premiere, watching the premiere, thought, holy shit, this is the best fucking TV show ever. It's got ghosts and like demons and a boat that might be a spaceship. I'm not sure. But... Now looking back, of course, as soon as you said that, I had to like pick up. I went right to YouTube on my phone and got looking at videos, and I was like, oh my god, this looks so ridiculous now. But yeah,
it's
12-year-old me was digging it, man.
It's truly insane. It's an amazing show.
Is. Mike, if you're not familiar with it, you've got to check it out.
Yeah, the Cancel Too Soon podcast episode about it is a great primer. It's a lot of fun.
I had to write a note for myself to watch that. Now I've got another podcast to follow. So,
but it's I'm really proud of our show. We've been going for about 3 years now, and it was kind of an act of like I've always commuted because I live far away from where I work and stuff like that, and so podcasts have been sort of a godsend. And like going from kind of like being just a massive fan of podcasts to like making podcasts and doing stuff it's kind of cool. It's like it's the modern version of cable access TV. It's like the last independent media that kind of anybody can do and is kind of anybody's game. They've not yet figured out a way to kind of gatekeep it. I mean, the big ones will always be big and things with money will always be there, but like the number of cool things I've like found and have like an audience that's just built around the fact that like they've made a thing that is a cool product, like and that is really neat to me, coming out of kind of like punk rock and DIY stuff and being really kind of growing up really into like indie film and stuff like that. When I find formats like that, I'm like, oh, this is cool as hell. Like something like the Black Tapes or something like that, where it's like, oh my god, these like two brilliant, insane, funny Canadian guys like made a fake version of Serial, and now it's like this amazing thing that people know all about. And, like that's such a cool thing to see.
Yeah, no, it's true, and and this whole show exists came out of me listening to a podcast one day and called Playing with Power and thinking, hey, this is pretty cool. Like, I used to have Nintendo Power magazines and a subscription, and these guys made a podcast about it. It's great. Started following that, started sending a few messages back and forth. Me and Mike started talking, and, it eventually, our friendship evolved into
your
the Graveyard
short-lived.
Shift.
I was assuming it was your short-lived Game Informer spin-off show. That was purely for Mike.
Well, when we run out of Nintendo Power magazines, which will happen because one, I do not have all the scans, and if I did, then it would still be finite. But I like the idea.
I always assumed you guys would just move immediately over to tips and tricks.
I'm working on a pilot episode of the Game Genie podcast. But,
it's just a random sheet of number codes inside of a small booklet.
That's it. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Today's game, Super Mario Brothers 3. Today's code XLYZZ33445511888. When you find out what it does, let us know in the comments section. This is the best we can do to keep you engaged, because this is a terrible premise.
It's like the time we tried to play Truth or Dare on an episode. And realized it doesn't really work that well in an audio format.
Yeah, we covered Truth or Dare Critical Madness. Have you ever seen that one?
I have not.
Early 80s straight-to-video horror movies, man. Nothing
so
like it.
Down.
It is straight from video, okay? This was never filmed.
Recorded straight to a VHS film and shipped directly to the video store.
Oh, hells yes.
I will send you a link to it and then to our episode, because the guest on that has watched this movie so many times. He had so much trivia that actually explained a lot of things that will have you scratching your head. Like stories of why does this decapitation scene not involve a head being cut off? And he will tell you.
Yeah,
that's rad.
Oh, it's a great one. Yeah, you got to check this one out, man, for sure.
Let's just say it ends with a Whitney Houston style gospel anthem about the killer.
I'm into this. I'm so down.
Yep, it's rad. Okay, so now back to Night of the Comet.
Yeah.
I have to ask, out of all the movies you could have chosen for us to watch, what made you decide on this one?
It's kind of a pet project for me, kind of getting people to know about this. I mean, Shout Factory last year did a truly incredible Blu-ray release of it that's awesome. It's got a great cover, it's a great transfer, it's got great special features. I saw it on the Sci-Fi Channel in probably, 2003. It was just one of those things where I've just got it on and I caught it from the beginning, and it's got that very weird voiceover beginning where you're just, what the hell is this? And then all of a sudden, it's the movie theater and it's the people partying, and I make the joke that I feel like every thing I write and everything that I film when I'm shooting sketches and stuff is in some way, shape, or form just slowly trying to become Night of the Comet. I love horror comedy, and I feel like it's very rarely done well. And as somebody who's I would say probably equally obsessed with horror and comedy, because they're kind of the two sides of my life and what I do. I'm always this is pretty cool, but I feel like there's very few that just stand out as truly successful versions of that. For me, it's Shaun of the Dead and American Werewolf are the gold standard for that. But I also love campy 80s stuff, especially when it's kind of fun and not The Toxic Avenger is one of my favorite movies of all time. Big Trouble in Little China is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love Return of the Living Dead, and this movie does such a good job of doing equal parts, doing kind of a fresh take on a genre story. There's nothing else that really follows a plot like this. It has genuinely funny parts. It has genuinely scary parts and interesting characters. I love all three of the main characters. I think that the villains in it are really cool. I love that it kind of it almost plays like a book, where it kind of goes from chunk to chunk instead of kind of hitting beats of kind of a traditional movie. And I really like that kind of thing where you kind of have this oh, we're over here, now we're over here. I think the ending is insane and I love it, because it's such a kind of weird. It almost feels like the end of like a play, just this like surrealist kind of like PS to this over like this weird movie. And it's just and not a ton of people know about it. And I feel like it has two incredibly well written, very cool like female protagonists that I feel like this movie passed the Bechdel test like a motherfucker.
Oh yeah,
it's a lot of fun, and I love characters who, like, my least favorite thing in movies and books are characters who, like, I can't do this, like, like, I love that, like, from jump the girls are just like, oh, our military dad that you've never met taught us how to fire machine guns, so we just know how to do that, and we know how to fight, and we're like sarcastic, and we like they're just super empowered and cool, and you kind of want to just like be them. Like Reg is just such a great like cool character, but she's also like vulnerable, and I love that, like, they are three-dimensional. Like I just feel like it's such a like fun to watch movie that really kind of gets swept under the rug, and I feel like there's a lot of garbage stuff people run to, and like this is one of those ones that I feel like kind of falls between the cracks, especially like love or hate whatever Joss Whedon is or isn't. If you're a Buffy fan and you've never seen Night of the Comet, you are fucking up, because like it's very much in that same boat.
It is, yeah. One of the things I found when I was doing a little research on this one is that, yeah, Joss Whedon cites this movie as being a major influence for the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie.
Yeah, he was like, I'm gonna write a more annoying version of this. I'm not a big Buffy fan. I'm not a big Joss Whedon fan. But at the same time, it did make me have to reassess my feelings on Buffy, because I'm like, all right, well, if he's name dropping Night of the Comet, then I got to rethink about this, because like I fucking love this movie.
Yeah, I'm glad you recommend this one, because I had seen it, but it was quite a while ago. I am actually pretty sure that I saw it on VHS when I was a kid, and this movie came out in '84, and it usually used to take us. I lived in a small town, so we didn't have a Blockbuster. The only video stores we had were the convenience stores with a wall of movies in the corner, and so it used to take us. Usually, I used to time it out when I saw commercials or trailers for a movie on TV. I would say, okay, I'll be able to see this movie in about a year when we get it on VHS here. And I think this one was pretty new to VHS when I saw it, so I probably saw it around like 85, 86.
Okay.
And I didn't really remember it that well, and I know once I read the premise, I was like, I'm pretty sure I saw this, but it was at a time when I didn't analyze movies the way I do now, so this was definitely better than I remembered it.
It's also a movie that if you only see part of it, you could describe it to someone else who saw a different part of it, and you'd have no idea you're watching the same movie.
Oh, absolutely.
You're like, oh, it's like that movie about the girls in the mall, and it's like, no, I saw a movie about like a bunch of scientists trying to like drain dead bodies. It's like, oh, well, I saw a thing in a radio station.
Yeah, but no, isn't that the name of the movie where everyone saw that comet pass by and turned everyone into dust?
Except for the people who turn into aliens?
Yeah.
Or zombies?
Exactly. Now, Mike, this was the first time that you saw this movie, right?
Absolutely.
So, without getting into too much detail, what did you think of it?
It was interesting from the start to the finish, and
you didn't like it.
Surprisingly, in movies, it had sensible characters.
Mm-hmm.
It never, rarely did it show anybody where it's just like, I wouldn't do that. Like, every decision didn't make me scream, oh, come on! You're just being stupid for the convenience of the plot. No!
Yeah.
They managed to have people do sensible things and still have challenges and difficulties. Despite the fact that they're not those idiots in the beginning of infomercials like, has this ever happened to you? Like, no, it didn't happen to them because they're not stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't play on a lot of the typical horror movie tropes, especially like from the 80s horror.
Oh, the misogyny was absent from this movie, and I was happy. No stand and scream girls. That was great.
It's a lot of it's neat like that. It's funny when you watch it because you don't realize until you're watching it like how rare that is.
No, absolutely, that's right. And, well, we've already talked a little bit about it, but I'm sure we've got lots more to say. I can't wait to actually get into some details with what we liked about this movie and see if we had anything interesting about what we didn't like about it. That's going to be a fun thing to talk about. But before we do, here's a little info about Night of the Comet. Released in November of 1984, Night of the Comet is a sci-fi horror comedy. It had a budget of $700,000 US and had a box office run of $14 million. So it did all right, which is kind of weird why, it's, like we said, it's not well known to most people. So
I have a theory on that, by the way.
Oh, let's hear it.
Because I'm looking at the poster for it right now. I think they didn't know how to advertise it. And so there's not, like, iconography that you immediately jump to with it, and I think that, like, in that time period, especially, like, so many movies, it's like, oh, there's the fucking kid on the bike across the moon, or oh, there's, the spaceship over the desert mesa. That was such a thing that, like, I think it's such a, like, you can't pin it down, so it's hard to sell it. And I think that, like, people went and saw it, and it's fun, and, like, you tell people, like, oh, you gotta go see this thing, but at the same time, there's no, like, way you can kind of, like, throw it out at people without going, like, oh, it's, like, a lot of weird things happen.
That's true. Yeah, because, correct me if I'm wrong, the movie poster that I saw for it was just a bunch of people looking at the sky with glowing eyes, and then the main character looking through an open door.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good luck figuring that one out.
Which did not happen in the movie.
It's actually, I figured out, it's the shot of her leaving the movie theater before she runs into the homeless zombie that tries, and then you realize, oh, she's like a badass with fighting skills.
Yeah.
It's such a weird shot to pull.
Yeah, really. Well, it has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 82% from critics, but only 57% from audience, which I really don't understand, especially, like we said, considering that it actually did have a very successful theater run. But, that's... I think it's because it doesn't really fit in that mold of most horror fans. It's not what you... It's definitely not what you think of when you think of 80s horror.
Yeah.
So that could have something to do with it.
I'd hate to think.
Please.
I'd hate to think that they actually, like, want those negative aspects of horror movies that this doesn't have. Like they watch the horror movies because they want the dumb girls that will stand, stare, or scream at a threat instead of attacking it or fleeing it. Like, is that what they want in a horror movie?
I think some of it too is like it. You could call it a zombie movie, but it's not really a zombie movie. You could call it like a sci-fi movie, but it's not wildly sci-fi. It's not particularly gory. It's not particularly scary, even though there's like a couple like tense moments. I still think like the villain, like the guys in the mall that come after them, like I think that whole sequence is like really well done. And you're like, oh, like this guy does know how to like put some scares together.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that like. I do think a lot of horror fans just want kind of like cliches on some level sometimes. And this is a movie that definitely like defies expectations as the norm.
For sure. Now, as for the plot, a comet wipes out most life on Earth, leaving two valley girls to fight against cannibal zombies and a sinister group of scientists. Now, right there, it is the plot, but... not really.
Yes, exactly.
And isn't that summary a spoiler?
Oh, of course.
Since we're supposed to believe, at least in the beginning, that the scientists are good, that they're trying to like either repopulate the human species or like just get every living person together first, and then like, okay, now what do we do? But no, it turns out they've got this weird plan. So like telling you they're sinister right off the bat, like every time you see them now, then you're just like, well, what are these assholes up to?
That's a good point. Okay, so yeah, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about with this movie, so let's get started. Let's go with the easy one first. Let's go with what we liked about this, and if you guys don't mind, I'm going to kick it off.
Oh, please.
Sure.
Okay, so very first thing I had to write about this movie was, while it feels and looks very 80s, there's no denying the 1950s B-movie influence throughout it. The title itself sounds like old sci-fi. The premise of the comet turning people into dust or zombies, that voiceover at the beginning, it all has that 1950s foundation with a nice coat of 80s neon paint. To me, that's how I felt when I was watching anyway. Like, it really harkened back to a nice 1950s sci-fi horror, and I'm always down for that. So that made me smile. I really like that. And like we mentioned the voiceover at the beginning, weird voiceover. I mean, how many 1950s sci-fi movies started off with that? Some narrator kicking off, like, talking about the first event of the movie.
Yeah, so like, there's a lot going on here, and rather than leave it up to you to catch up, we're just going to hand it to you on a plate just so that, like, nobody in the audience will be, like, scratching their heads.
Yeah, exactly. So, Mike, how about you? Tell me something about this specifically that you liked.
I liked the opening. I only just had a bit of trouble with, like, the title of the movie itself because of, like, the background and the lettering that they chose. It was hard to read. But all the rest of the credits were great. Like, they were, like, bright red, they were easily readable, but the name, like, Night of the Comet, it was like this melted, burned caramel thing on a space backdrop, barely illuminated on certain edges. It was hard to read. And the intro music was less horror movies and more like, National Lampoon's Apocalypse Vacation.
Which could really be another title for this movie.
Darn, missed opportunity. Yeah, but it just sounded like a sex romp movie, like Porky's or Meatballs. Like, it just, like, the music didn't seem like you're about to watch a horror movie.
Well, but it is kind of like a 80s sex comedy on top of being a sci-fi horror movie.
Yeah, it's a sex comedy without much sex, which again defies horror expectations. So it's a weird, tumultuous, like a bit of a dislike, but it's tied into a lot of, like, interesting stuff. Like, it's just like the movie's just begun and it's already telling you, yeah, don't expect whatever you thought you were going to expect.
You know what it very much reminds me of too is Valley Girl, which is another like 80s, the kind of R-rated 80s teen movie. Is one of my favorite genres ever. Fast Times is maybe in my top 5 favorite movies of all time, and Valley Girl's right up there too. And this definitely has like that tone of like, oh, I would watch this movie even if it was just like Reg and her sister like running around doing like teen Valley Girl shit. I would still watch that movie even if there weren't space zombies in this.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, that's a great movie on its own.
That movie would be called, like, totally the end of the world,
See, and I would watch the shit out of that. It's
Ronnie
funny too because they're not even that Valley of Valley Girls. In the movie too,
they're
which is
not.
Like they're both like very sharp and like just kind of doing their thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, they're not like total airheads.
Yeah, no matter where they go, they bring weapons. Like, they're not dummies. That's so respectable.
Like, I love the scene where it's just the two of them shooting Uzis at the car, or Mac 10s at the car, and it's just like, what an awesome day of filming this must have been.
and then they just like, yeah, we should have got Uzis.
Yeah.
And did you guys read anything about this movie too, where that line was improvised by the actress that played Samantha?
Oh, really?
Yeah, the gun that they were using, like, locked up, and they were already told beforehand by the directors that they have a limited amount of time because I think they were they didn't have any they weren't like didn't have the funds to close off streets or anything, so they were actually just filming during times when traffic was light. And,
oh wow!
So the gun that they were using, like, actually locked up, and that line was improvised by Samantha. That said, like, hey, like, these things always lock up. We should have gotten Uzis.
Daddy would have gotten us Uzis.
Daddy would have gotten us Uzis. Yes, that's the line.
You know what it always reminds me of too? That chunk of the movie is. Are you guys familiar with Buckaroo Banzai in the Eighth Dimension?
Oh yeah.
Like. I was talking to my girlfriend Natalie about this earlier, about this movie. This falls well within that 80s category of, like, people who you don't expect to have guns who have guns. Because there's that great scene in Buckaroo Banzai where that guy starts problems and the entire band pull guns out. Like,
Yes.
and this has that same thing of like, there was a real like bit in Hollywood movies in the early 80s where like, isn't it hilarious to just give everyone a gun?
Oh, it is. There's one in particular. I don't know if you guys ever saw this movie, but it was during the whole Gremlins, Critters, Ghoulies phase. There's this even lower budget movie than all of these called Munchies.
Oh, Jesus.
You've watched it, right?
I feel like there is a 12-year-old me watching the Sci-Fi Channel in like 1996 going like, this movie blows.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, but one of the scenes that I will always remember, like the rare occasion someone has brought up this movie Munchies, was where some of these these gremlin-ish creatures have stolen a car, and they're just like driving around and forcing other vehicles off the road, and they drive up to this granny driving an old like wood panel station wagon, and they start like ramming the side of her car, and all of a sudden she looks at them, gives them the finger, then reaches to her purse and pulls out this freaking like 45 long barrel Magnum and starts shooting
love
at
that.
him.
Like that's it's never not funny. Like it's always a good joke.
Like that, I thought that was hilarious. I remember watching it with my family. I think it's because it's probably movie night at my house, and that's the movie that I selected, and which anytime it was my turn to select a movie, I usually got a few groans from my family members. But I remember that, and I remember like thinking, "Oh, that is so stupid." Like and I'm just rolling on the floor, cracking up at this because they have this actress who looks like she's about 90 years old, literally like the gag first when you see her driving, she's barely able to look over the steering wheel.
Classic.
And just pulls out this like Dirty Harry looking Magnum and starts ripping and firing into the side of this car. And then did she just like, they just drive past, they floor and drive past, she's never seen again. So, awesome. And that just popped into my head as soon as you said that about these 80 movies where
it's a weird thing that
weapons out of nowhere.
Once you become aware of it, you really start to notice it in a ton of movies from the 80s.
Yeah. It's that's great. So
I don't think Kyle got to fire off his first line.
no, that's what I was getting to next. Like,
Well, I said some of it earlier that like I love the characters. Like all three leads I think are great. I think that like Catherine Mary Stewart, I feel like is so unapologetic and so like well defined and cool. Like you just want to be her in the movie. I think Robert Beltran does such a great job of like carrying himself as these two like amazing actresses. Like just slam dunk every scene.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody has a real great chemistry where things feel very like real, but in a very like heightened way. But like because I kind of feel like, to me, this movie feels like a love letter to everything cool and nerdy in 1984. 50s monster movies, zombie stuff, space things, people are having a party to watch like a comet. Like we all have that person at work who's like real into astronomy and is always like, oh, like the cool like moon thing's happening tonight at 9 p.m. Make sure you catch it. And you're just like, for sure, I'm definitely gonna do that. And then you for sure don't, like, because you forget. And like, whereas in this movie, people are literally having like comet parties, and like I love the running theme of just that she's like really good at Tempest, which is such a I love. Those are the kinds of things that I feel like modern things that do 80s throwbacks can sometimes get wrong, and I feel like it did a pretty good job of doing right in some cases. That not everybody's favorite thing is Ghostbusters and Pac-Man. Like people love Tempest and some piece of shit, like I spit on your grave, not even I spit on your grave, like I eat your flesh or something like that, something like weird that is more accurate to what the time was probably like. And I think that all that, and I think you're dead on. I think that kind of like 1950s by way of 1980s day glow paint is so much fun, and really kind of a perfect. Like we were talking, I think before the podcast started, about how I put this movie as my unofficial trilogy of Night of the 80s movies, where it's this, Night of the Creeps, and Night of the Demons, and all three have a very similar sentiment of being these kind of like 50s style things done in this 80s sort of way, and I think that's it's a style of movie we don't get anymore, and I think this is one of the best versions of that kind of movie.
Yeah, you said it. And I had a note on my I had a little note made there too at that point where it's like, I'm wondering which one of us is going to be able to identify what video game she was playing. You already brought it up, so that's good.
Yeah, it's Tempest, man.
Yep. I sucked at that game.
I was going to say, if you ever play, it's crazy hard.
It is. Well, I mean, at the time, like, I was still playing, this was 86, so I'm just trying to think my local arcade what I was playing. And thinking, like, 86 arcade games, what would I have been playing at the time? But I do remember Tempest, and I do remember trying it, and I do remember failing terribly and never going back to it.
Yeah, that's what made Regina, that was her name, right? Regina? Yeah, Reggie.
Yep.
That's what made her such an amazing character, because, like, she's a gamer gal back in 1984, and in that Usher costume, she kind of looked like a sexy Mountie for Halloween.
Under my things that we don't like, it's going to entirely be Regina's shirt. Because she's got the Usher outfit, and that one's pretty cool, and is kind of, they're all dressed as sexy Mounties with their movie ushers, and then she wears that blue, like, double, like, flip over Renaissance fair in the future via steampunk Blade Runner shirt, and we all just pretend like that's like a thing someone wore once.
Yeah.
And what makes me also love this girl is that when she's with her boyfriend, and he mentions,
not her boyfriend.
Yeah, the guy,
they are
like
just
her,
fucking
her side piece, and she like, that's another thing. Like, she's not like, she's not like that girl in like Paradise by the Dashboard Light, which was like the typical, I'll do it, but like, will you love me? Will you respect me? She's just like, no, we're gonna get off, and maybe if I got nothing better to do, we'll do it again.
Yeah, and he's such a dork too, which is fun.
And he got the Superman trivia wrong, and she corrected him. That was like, all right, I love this girl. I wished she was real, because like,
she should be, I feel like, the mascot, for, like, she's so many things that people, like, say they want to see in movies, and they all exist in one amazing character in a good movie that no one talks about.
Yeah, a geeky gamer gal.
But
she knows comics.
Think she's also kind of an asshole, which I think is a lot of fun. Like, she talks a lot of shit. She's kind of mean to everyone, but, like, you kind of love her for it.
Well, she acts like she's better than everyone because she is.
Yeah. She's the girl who's too cool for the town, who's got to, like, get the hell out and move to a cooler city.
That is right. Okay, well, I got to mention something about this movie, and this one is completely personal to me, but at the 6-minute, 38-second mark, shout out to my Newfie peeps! Newfoundland, of course, is my point of origin, so I'm always stoked when I hear it come up in a movie. Despite the fact that the guy that said it made 2 attempts and still didn't say it right.
He said it wrong twice.
Yeah. Nobody ever says it right. Everyone always says Newfoundland or Newfoundland. It's Newfoundland.
No one's going to call it that. You get out of here with that right now.
Well, see, the thing is, I have
to take the message back to your people and say that it is Newfoundland.
Mindy Kaling, in an interview once, was talking about Newfoundland, and she explained it best, because she said, I always said it wrong, I always called it Newfoundland, but I got corrected, and the best way I can explain it is that you say it the same way you say understand. Understand? Newfoundland.
Oh, okay.
So, there you go. Not only is the show great entertainment, but it's also educational. So, yeah, so that just made me smile. I totally forgot about that, and I'm pretty sure that when I was a kid, the first time I saw this movie, I probably rewound that part like a dozen times to hear him say it. It's like, other people know that Newfoundland exists. All right.
My is like, it's like a 4 small part, and it's just, I call it look-alike theater, where the projectionist looks like a washed-up Marty McFly. Samantha looks like the spoiled, disaffected daughter of Ronald McDonald when we see her watching TV and popping chips.
Oh, yeah.
The lover boy, projectionist, when he opens up the door, he gets killed by Tyrone Biggums.
Is that the Dave Chappelle character?
Yeah.
It was so funny when you sent me that picture, because I was like, holy shit, that is for sure where he got this from. Because it's the exact same costume.
It's perfect.
Oh, that is too close to not be. That's
like,
too close to be.
All that did was make me like Dave Chappelle even more.
Yeah.
And the final lookalike is that Willie in the shopping mall, when he's got the gun pressed up to the girl and he takes off the glasses and puts them on, he is Judge Doom.
Yeah. He is genuinely a terrifying character.
Yeah, and he's been like a special effects and a stuntman, I think, in real life. He's been in a lot of movies where he's like grossly disfigured and in makeup. Like his IMDb page has, if I'm not screwing up, he's done like a lot of like stunt work and did like very few like acting roles. But still, that like we have a newscaster called Rick Mercer. If you've ever seen This Hour Has 22 Minutes, and when you see Willie for the first time looking at the cameras, I thought for sure like, oh, Rick Mercer joined a gang.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably not familiar with This Hour's 22 Minutes. It's a Canadian TV show. It's a fake news show. They were actually doing it before The Daily Show.
Yeah, they've been doing it since what, late 80s?
I think this Hour's 22 Minutes. I think it was the early 90s when they started.
Well, so it would be 1991. They also did. Oh yeah, I'm confusing it with Codco, which was like their previous.
Which it had a lot of the same actors. Yeah.
And Rick Mercer, he has this bit like where he's like followed around by a black and white camera, and he like rants about something, and he's hilarious. And he's also a Newfie, right?
He is, yep.
Yep. So that's the second Newfoundland connection, although one is a large stretch.
Watch that word, man. We're the only ones allowed to use that word.
Oh, that's your N word. Okay.
Yes.
I believe it's pronounced Nufa.
What up, Manufa?
Hashtag Nufa.
We have taken this as far as three white guys on Skype can go.
Okay, so I guess I'll pass the tiki torch to Kyle.
Whoa!
just when you thought we were close enough to the edge, I'm like, no, we got a good foot.
Okay, yeah, Kyle. We'll go to you. Something else very specific about this one.
I'm trying to think, like, what's another good piece there. I mean, I really do think that sequence where the guys have got them chained up and are doing the scene with the revolver is so interesting, because the movie's been so fun and carefree, and then it just whips into this, like, dark Stephen King, Walking Dead, like, nightmare, oh my god, they are not going to get out of this, it is bleak moment that's so intense, but it doesn't feel out of place in that universe. Like, even though you're having a good time, there is still that sense of, like, danger around every curve.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just thought everything about that mall scene, like, even before the bad guys show up, like, I really thought it was Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
I love when you hear it and you really realize how quickly it is not the famous version of that song.
Oh, thank God someone else mentioned that.
That was the one note I made.
And the montage scene was just, like, so cute of them just, like, dressing up, having fun, and then when the bad guys show up, they actually like act sensibly.
Yeah, I love
that them off.
They literally use like kind of combat tactics, you know, trying to fight them off in such a way where you're just like, I've seen like action movies where people aren't that smart about how they're fighting.
Yeah, like pelting them with shoes, dropping TVs on them, acting like a mannequin, and then getting to drop on them. And then when one of them, like Samantha, runs into Eminem, then she just immediately bends him over and knocks him out, and then does, like, just to show you that she's not like this disaffected 80s badass girl, she does a cute little jump and goes, ta-da! Like, she kicks ass and stays cute.
Yeah.
The other thing was the soundtrack in general, the whole thing. Like I have not looked to see if you know, Death Waltz or somebody has reissued this, but like I would buy the shit out of this vinyl, because it is that glorious trash power pop, like stuff that's the same kind of stuff that's all over the Valley Girl soundtrack, which is another soundtrack I love because it's got like the Plimsolls and song Girls Like Me is so good. Like this one has a ton of ones like that where you're just like, man, like what a fun time capsule of a bunch of like great, clearly was inexpensive to clear music.
Oh yeah.
It also shows LA in a very specific time period. There's a lot of really cool shots. Like the El Rey, that's the movie theater they work at, is a concert venue here that I've been to many times, and so it's always fun when I see it. It pops up in a lot of movies as a movie theater, which is always strange. But it's that's kind of neat to see, is like seeing the LA skyline and seeing the El Rey and seeing all these different parts of LA that from a very like kind of specific point of view. They pick very clearly because of like their budgetary concerns. They kind of went where they could, steal shots and stuff like that. So you get a cool vision of what LA looked like in that time.
Yeah, no, that's great. Did anybody ever find out? Like, I didn't find out. I actually did look for it, but didn't find anything. The reason why, just going back to Girls Just Want to Have Fun, that they used a cover version rather than Cyndi Lauper's, was it just budget-wise?
It's got to be the money thing. I guarantee for a movie made for $700,000, I bet it would be the budget of their movie to get the rights to that song.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean that was like, 84, so that
song clearances in the early 80s for things. Oh, get the fuck out of here! That's the music industry going like, well, I guess if you gave us all your money, you can have the song.
Yeah.
If you want to have the movie be a music video taking place in the mall,
and it almost kind of feels perfect because the version that they have is like, I can't think of a better like symbolic thing for the movie as a whole.
No, that's true. It sums it up, just in the title alone. And I mean, name an '80s movie, an iconic '80s movie, especially if it has any elements of comedy that doesn't have a great music montage. That's a staple for '80s. Anything that had any comedy elements whatsoever.
What was the '80s montage in They Live?
They replaced it with a cool fight scene. And really, I mean, the opening of the movie is a montage to John Carpenter's score.
All right,
of Roddy Piper walking into town.
I'm satisfied.
So, fuck you.
Blow the barrel, give your gun a spin, and reholster.
We're developing a great trend of guests putting me in my place.
It's just fun and kind of easy.
Okay, well, I got one that I want to bring up, and I already told you guys about it before we started recording, but I got to say it just for people listening. The unintentional foreshadowing in the form of a Star Trek reference.
Yeah.
That was so cool. Just at the DJ booth, Samantha says, "Beam me up, Scotty," in reference to Star Trek, of course, just before Hector's first appearance. And, of course, Hector is played by Robert Beltran, who went on to play Chakotay in Star Trek Voyager more than a decade later.
Which I didn't even make a connection to until I was looking up the IMDb stuff earlier, and I clicked, I'm like, oh, what else has he been in? And I was like, holy shit, it's Chakotay! Like,
yeah.
And so that was very fun to see, and what a cool thing.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I'm like, what a coincidence.
What a rad career he has.
And he plays such a unique character compared to all these like smart independent girls. He played like not like a bumbling guy, but kind of like a bit of a lovable goof.
Yeah.
When
he's not cool.
Yeah, when he goes home and he hears like and he's just like, listen, buddy, like you talk about the 50s. He is like a 50s guy that got dropped in the 80s because he's like, all right, listen, buddy, I don't want no trouble. So how about you just split?
Like, and the fact that he's able to just like pull a cowboy costume out of nowhere.
Yeah. Oh, first the Santa. And then the cowboy outfit, like he's Mr. Dress Up.
Yeah, he has a shocking number of like elaborate costume changes in a film where that is not the reality they've set.
I know.
And we haven't. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just like saying he's Mr. Dress Up, which I don't know if that made it in the States, but it was like a children's show about like a guy who would Sheldon, back me up. Have you seen Mr. Dress Up?
Oh yeah, Mr. Dress Up was Canada's Mr. Rogers.
Okay.
Yeah, guy with a heart
Sheldon,
of gold.
I feel like every time we bring up another show from like 80s Canadian television, I feel your accent get a little stronger as if you're feeding off of them. My good friend Richard Eden, who's up in the Yukon territory, sent me a show when I was working at midnight as a weird video pitch. God, I wish I remember the name. It's half in English, half in French. It's a bunch of puppets. It's about 2 kids and a puppet that live in a junkyard.
What the hell?
That's new to me. I remember the Friendly Giant. They lived in the castle.
Oh, no, I've seen me some Friendly Giant. This thing I had never seen before. God damn it, I wish I remember the name now, because I could not stop watching it. And he was like, hey, man, you want to have a bunch of nightmares? And I was like, of course. And it's this, like, kid show. There was a part where, like, a bunch of puppet skeletons playing a rock band.
Oh, my God. Was it Tele Francais?
Yes, that's the one.
Oh, my God, yes!
Tele Francais is the jam.
The pineapple. The one of the main characters, the puppet, the pineapple.
That's it. It's 2 children and a pineapple living in a garbage dump.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
There was a rock band. They had a rock band. They used to have like a music montage in every episode. That was a rock band that was 2 skeletons called Les Squelettes.
Yep, that's the one.
Wow. We actually used to watch this sometimes in French class.
Oh,
like
really?
In, like, 4th grade, maybe. And in 4th grade, even in 4th grade, I was thinking, I'm way too old for this. This is embarrassing.
Man, my 80s pedigree was better. I watched the Edison Twins, which was like a great educational TV show. Like, kids would solve mysteries and then teach you at the end, like, how they managed to power a light bulb with a lemon, or do, like, whatever they did in the show, they explained the science behind it at the end, which was great. And then when I wasn't watching that, I was enjoying The Littlest Hobo.
Okay, that's pretty classic. That was like vintage by the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 80s was like a remake series, wasn't it? Because there was a 60s version, I believe.
Oh, okay, that's the only one I know. I didn't realize there was a remake show.
Yeah, the 80s one, like, it was phenomenal. Like, to me, it was just great. Like, dog comes in, does amazing stuff, and everyone was just like, oh man, this dog saved my life. I wanna like keep him, and the dog's just like, fuck you, buddy, I'm moving on.
Wow.
Like the end of an episode of Kung Fu or the Hulk.
Yeah, he
Exactly.
wandered. Yeah, his job is to wander the earth. So who gets the next like? Was it Sheldon or?
I just did my Star Trek one reference, so Mike, you take it.
Okay, what I liked is the in the military base when when Samantha is when Regina's going, one of the sisters is going through the morgue / blood bank area, and all of a sudden, I guess Billy Cole was a private because someone turned his smoke machine on. So every time we see a smoke machine, I'm just like, Billy Cole from Fright Night has had an interesting past.
Throwback to our first episode. Wow.
I never forget my roots. And talking about like other allusions from other 80s movies, when they tie up the nurses and they leave a note like going to see Santa, and I'm like, did Die Hard rip off this movie?
A little.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got the henchman tied up, and you got a Christmas note like, I have a machine gun, ho ho ho. Like Die Hard ripped this off. Dave Chappelle ripped this off. This movie is the progenitor of so much awesome.
That's why I want it to get out in the world a little more, because it is one of those things that, like, there has been so many things that have been influenced by it that, you know, people just don't know about.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Yeah, especially like that. Like after the that was such a cool scene. After them telling the kids that they were going to go visit, they're going to go to sleep when they wake up. They were going to be with Santa.
Oh, those kids! Like I don't know where the hell they get off. Like, the kids see Regina and they say, "Oh, she's a neat girl," and this like 8-year-old says, "Well, if you like the type."
Yeah.
And that is my last like. Do you have any more, Kyle?
I do. I have one more. I would be like sad at myself if I didn't bring it up. Mary Warnov in this movie. I, for whatever reason, in the last few years have just become infatuated with her. She's kind of my screen crush at this point because she's harsh and intense and often murdering dumb men, and I find that exciting.
Oh yeah, she's got this hard beauty to her.
Yeah,
like she's good looking, but she doesn't fucking care what you think. She's got a job to do.
She was an Andy Warhol girl. She's in Chelsea Girls and stuff. Like she was like one of his like go-to people, which I find super interesting. And then you look at her career, and it's just a lot of like interesting stuff. All the work she did with Paul Bartel. Like, have you guys seen Chopping Mall, where her and Paul Bartel's characters from Eating Raoul are in one scene of that movie for no reason?
Wasn't Samantha in that movie too?
Yes, and so Dick Miller's character from Blood Feast is too. Like, it's insane. Like that, like Chopping Mall is another movie right up there with Night of the Comet. It's not as good as the Night of the Comet by a long shot, but it is a similar one where you're just like, what the hell are all these people doing here?
And Samantha kills a robot too, doesn't she?
Yes, she does.
So she kicks ass in yet another movie. So we've got two strong kick-ass girls, but one is like a hard beauty, and the other one's like this cute bruiser that you never see coming.
Yeah, and it's I think that I love the weird trajectory of her character in this movie. Mary Warnoff's character playing like White, the scientist who's gonna euthanize Kelly Maroney's character, because it's interesting. I feel like you don't see that kind of dynamic of a lot. It's just another thing that kind of defies expectations. You're like, oh, she's gonna be like the bad guy, and then like she's like the harsh one, but she actually like put her down to try to give her a chance to escape. And then like that scene where it's literally her and Chakotay dressed as Santa Claus talking while she commits suicide is such a like weird thing. Like, it's she's amazing, and I love her, and I love that she's in this movie.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely.
It's crazy when you run through her catalog, because it runs the gamut from Rock and Roll High School to House of the Devil. You're just like, damn, what a cool career.
Yeah. She was in another movie too from the I'm trying to remember if this was from the 80s or was it the 90s, but you guys familiar with Warlock?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was in that one as well.
Oh, was that the one where a guy, like a wizard and the guy hunting him are transported to the future, and the warlock French kisses a gay guy only because he wants to like bite out his tongue and like fry it up and eat it?
That's the one.
That would be it, yep.
Wow. Was she the Cassandra with a K?
No, she wasn't the main female character.
So she was Cassandra with a C.
I can't remember the character's name, but yeah, she wasn't the lead, but I just because I only remember her just because she has such a unique look. You remember her in everything that you've seen her in.
Yes.
There's she does definitely like you can't describe her it's.
Well, like I said, she's got like a steely beauty. It's like she doesn't care how hot you think she is. Like, she's not hot for your approval. Yes. But she's already hot, and she doesn't give a damn what you think.
Yes.
Yeah. Piercing is the only way I can describe her.
Yeah.
That's the only word I can use.
Yeah, there's just like a layer of intensity that's really cool.
Absolutely. Okay, well, guys, we've unless someone else has got something else to say that, like, something specific that you want to bring up about this one that you really loved.
I mean, I think with your listeners, if they've got a free Friday night, like, get a buddy, get a pizza, hang out and watch it. Like, it's a good time.
For sure, yeah. So let's get to the hard part then. I had a rough time with this, and I'm sure you guys probably did too, but let's talk about things we didn't like about this movie. And I'm going to kick off one that's some people may agree, some people may not, but just one thing that bugged me a little bit was the lack of zombies. It's a zombie-ish movie, as we see rather few of them. In a way, I'm kind of glad that he kept it zombie-light, but I would have loved at least to have one scene where the main characters encounter like one horde of zombies, especially like after the girls got all gunned up. It would have been nice to see like an actual zombie attack, like in a swarm, sort of.
Oh yeah, like shipping guys that were like in a warehouse. Like we only got like 4 stock boys in one mall. What about other like storage facilities? Like you could have had a whole bunch of guys that were like shielded from the comet.
Yeah, I think it was just a missed opportunity. Like they missed an opportunity to explore the zombies a little more.
Oh, the radio station would have been a great spot because like that's got a massive antenna. It would have like absorbed like a percentage of the radiation, like a non-fatal amount. Like I really thought that they would like. I was expecting the voices to be recorded because the announcer wasn't like, "Oh my God, where is everybody?" So
Yeah.
I expected them to find the announcer, but like, bashing his head against the DJ booth or something. Like, I expected to find some staff in the radio station that were like going to provide a challenge or a threat to these girls.
Yeah. I especially thought maybe a good place to have added a few more zombies would have been when Chakotay went to his... I'm just going to call him Chakotay from now on anytime we mention him. But when he went to his home, like, that would have been a great time to have like some
Mom.
zombies. Yeah, his mom, his family, or even some of the other houses in the neighborhood, like zombies start coming out of them and chasing him. I was just hoping for a little more. I didn't really remember if there was more zombie scenes. And the only one I did remember was the first zombie we see, the Dave Chappelle one.
Yeah.
So I think it would have... I don't know if I can say it would have helped the movie because I still loved it, but I would have liked to have seen a little more zombie action anyway.
It would have padded out Chappelle's... Oh, sorry. It would have padded out the Chakotay's character if he had to like kill his mom or one of his sisters. Like, that would have added a bit of tragedy to his character, I think. Kyle?
Yeah, no, I think I'm probably on the same boat as you guys with it. I mostly I wish, and it's definitely one of those things that's clearly a byproduct of budget. I would have loved to have seen somewhere between the radio station and the mall, there be a moment where you just watch both the girls like kick ass.
Yeah.
Like, and just like smoke a group of like mutants, some mutants roll up like talking shit, and they just like waste them. I think would have been like a very like satisfying scene. And it's funny you mention that because every time I watch the movie, I assume Chakotay is gonna have to fight his family, and then like I'm always torn because I think that would be interesting. I also think it's interesting in this like existential way that everybody's just gone because it gives him the chance to just make the decision that like this new thing he had going that's clearly a good thing, he kind of goes like, oh shit, I should probably just go hang with those two cool ass ladies and not because my old life is gone. But I definitely feel like they could have done a better job of like clarifying that. I think they do a good job, but I think they could do a clearer job. If I had to find critique, but this is one of those movies. It's funny because I feel like there are movies I love that I definitely can give notes about things that I do or don't love, but this is in one of those like handful of movies that I just find is paced really well and it is very talky, and it definitely could use a little more action, but I do feel like it then punctuates the action with a lot more stakes than there might be if you really throw a ton of action in it.
Yeah. Well, that's something I could have put on my likes list, I guess, was you mentioned about the pace, because the movie had a runtime of 95 minutes. So that's what I always say is like the sweet spot for a horror movie. When you get to the between 90 and 100 minutes, it's like that. When I see that, it's like, okay, at the very least, if this is a bad movie, it's not going to take up a lot of my time, and it just and it usually indicates that a movie is going to move along at a good pace. There's not going to be like a lot of wasted scenes.
Yeah.
So like this, it's a great point. But that's a minor dislike. It's like that. I really had to dig for things I didn't like about this one. So that would probably be, of the things I didn't like, that's probably the most prominent. Like, you're absolutely right. I think it comes down to just about the budget that they had for this movie. Probably some time restraints as well. But a few more zombies, fewer mutants would have done well, I think.
Agreed.
Cool. So, Mike, anything you didn't like?
I've only got one, and that is the callback to DMK. Because when she's playing Tempest, there's a score. One guy is ruined her perfect dominance on the leaderboard.
Yeah, she was running the board.
DMK, and she takes offense to this guy, wonders who he is, mentions him, and you think, oh, he may show up soon then, like coming to play the arcade. No, you totally forget about him until he shows up at the very end of the movie to pick up the sister. Because again, you think, oh, they would be connected to Regina. No, has fuck all to do with Regina. And it's just, and he has his license plate.
It's such a fun kind of throwaway at the very end of the movie, just that's the last thing you see, and you have to remember literally like the beginning of the movie to go like, oh shit, that thing.
That thing that didn't matter then, and it matters even less now, because he's not even like there to talk to her like, oh, we have a shared rivalry, we're gonna bond with we're gonna bond with this arcade game. No, she's already with somebody else. This guy's nothing to her.
Yeah.
To me, it's just like with everything else in this movie that made sense and was respectable, this was like, all right, E.T. phone in this guy. Like, he was just oddly placed. He was a square peg in this movie. This otherwise flawless movie to me.
Not even flawless, just fun movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What about you, Kyle? Any big dislike?
I don't know. Like, I think that, like, any of the issues with it I have, like, because it's such a specific and kind of, like, weird movie, part of what I love about it is just, like, its idiosyncrasies. And, like, trying to, like, I don't, maybe it's because I, like, you know, film stuff or something like that. I feel like I rarely have that mindset of, like, oh, I wish a movie did this. Because I like more just seeing, like, all right, what did you do? Instead of me telling you what I wish you'd do. And so for me, I just sort of look at it like I just find it like a fun thing. And so outside of that feeling of like, I think we all would love to see them fuck up, you know, a bunch more zombies. But beyond that, I'm sort of just like, yeah, I mean, I wish there was maybe a little more with the scientists and a little more with like Mary Warnov and kind of going against the other guys. But I think that like that confusion is kind of what lets you not know who you can trust in that, and I think it does kind of unfold in an interesting way where it's kind of this like slow reveal. So I don't know, I just I don't think it's a perfect movie by any stretch, but I definitely have that kind of like, yeah, I just kind of like it for what it is, which is the lamest back out answer.
Its perfection is relative compared to what we've watched lately, so
relative perfection is maybe my new favorite term.
Yeah. I'm gonna be using that at work a lot. I got a feeling. How's that report, Sheldon? It's relatively perfection.
It's relatively perfect.
Yeah. The only other thing I thought, and oh my god, this is getting so far into nitpicking territory, it's making me hurt. But anyone else find it weird that the government would have this complex bunker and all these resources for such a small group of scientists? Wouldn't there at least be a few politicians or something that would have been pulled in there once these scientists realized what was happening?
I always assumed they were like a rogue group.
That
the government didn't know this exists.
Yeah, yes, it was like a bunch of people that just like siphoned off this budget just in case. And if the next day turned out fun, they'd be like, all right, we had our orgy and everything was fine. And we'll never speak of this again. We'll go back to our regular jobs and we'll just lock up the last one out has to lock up the bunker.
Yeah, and that was kind of always my thought is like they look official, but if, like the longer you kind of look at it, like, oh, I bet they stole everything.
Yeah, I had in my notes there. I just had maybe unofficial, so that's because they seem like they were odd, like for scientists, because these seem like an odd combination of scientists and military combined. Usually you've got this, when it comes to a government operation, you've got the scientists with military backup.
Yeah, they had the chain of command.
Yes, but these people were like a combination of both. Because they were scientists, but they were pretty heavily armed as well. They were gun-toting. They had no problem, ripping off shots at the mall kids. So, yeah. So that could be it. So like I said, that was nitpicking, but that's one of the things that... And so if it's hard to know, so maybe that should be my dislike, that, that should be explained.
Is it just me, or did their suits, like their blue leisure suits with their white clip belts, look quite a lot like the speed suits for Dr. Venture?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Well, it's
sure.
not like those guys rip anything off, so I'm sure it's just a coincidence.
I'm telling you, man, every part of this is a different thing.
I just thought the jumpsuits, they were getting prepared for, they were going to have to repopulate the Earth, and they were like, in the future, this is what everyone will wear. You know, all the sci-fi movies where everybody's wearing like the same color, the same jumpsuit. It might be different colors, but everyone's they kind of like had a consensus where this is what everyone wears from now on.
No diversity.
It's kind of funny that
we're all on this page.
It's kind of funny that Gene Roddenberry really kind of pushed this idea of like, well, what if we all just wore cool jumpsuits in the future, and that's how we roll? People were like, what? And he's like, no, but for real, jumpsuits.
2-color jumpsuits, so everyone knows their rank. And there we go.
And then they have a war because some people's stripes are on the wrong side of the jumpsuit.
Nice callback to the binary episode. I like the idea that they specifically chose like the red shirts because like that's so that you don't see the blood. Because they just like, okay, we got people that are clearly leadership material, people that are kick-ass, but we need to fill up people that are going to press buttons, open up elevators, and clean the toilets. What the hell are we going to make them wear? Well, we need to pad out the away mission, so who's going to be our meat shields? All right, well, how about the red guys?
Like, well, but don't we have more guys like Data? Like, yeah, but the robots are better. So,
Well, that's another thing. If they had an android like Data, why didn't they just like replicate a bunch of him for away missions?
Because only one person knew how to make them. Don't you get it? Like there's in the entire Star Trek universe, only one
kill
person
Data.
can figure out.
You kill Data, and then you reverse engineer him.
Remember, there were 2 Datas, and one of the Datas was a real asshole.
Oh Lord, that prick.
Oh, didn't we find out later on that there was 3?
Well, that was the one that they discovered when Captain Picard decided, I'm gonna go hit the dunes, throw some frisbees with Riker, and we're just gonna peel off some dunes, because apparently in the age of shuttles, we need a fucking car.
Look, a lot of mistakes were made on that last movie.
And they all began with action.
Oh, Star Trek.
Have you seen the new one?
Huh?
Have you seen the new one?
I actually have not.
Discovery?
That it came out. The new show or the last movie?
Show.
I have not. My folks were watching it the other night. I am so far behind on everything forever right now that I will get to it at some point.
I am there with you. I'm just like, I hear Orphan Black is great. I can't wait to start it now that it's ended.
Yeah.
Guys, this Game of Thrones show seems like it's pretty promising. I love that Sean Bean.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's been killed in so many things, but I got a feeling this...
Spoilers!
Spoilers! I was about to watch every Sean Bean movie for the first time.
I got a feeling he's going to be okay. I mean, he fills out this role. He's the center character, so... But what about you, Sheldon? You said you saw it. What were your thoughts on it?
I liked it, despite that it doesn't feel like Star Trek to me.
I saw those Klingons, and I'm just like, was this Stargate? Am I watching the wrong screenshot?
So that's
that was real weird.
That's all I'm going to say about it. That I mean, I'm interested enough that I'm going to, I'm watching it again. I'm going to keep watching it and see what happens. But I just felt that it could have had any name on it, like any sci-fi name. It didn't have to be Star Trek, and it would have been fine.
That's how I felt about Chrono Cross. Like, it was just a good game, but it's like, could you have just fucking called it, like, Radical Dreamers? So that I don't come at this thinking about Chrono Cross characters and stories and seeing something completely different.
I thought you were going to say that's how I felt about Chrono Cross. It didn't feel like Star Trek to me.
Okay, if we can get back on topic, I think we were almost done.
There's been a lot of Star Trek in this episode.
It's that Chakotay presence.
Yeah. So
all right,
yeah.
so I don't have to cut it out then because it is tangentially relevant.
Yes.
And also, who has time for edits?
That's our likes and dislikes. So, gentlemen, I think it's pretty unanimous. We all recommend Night of the Comet.
Do it.
Yeah.
I did have one WTF. How about you guys?
No, I didn't funny.
My only WTF is Reggie's shirt.
Okay, yes, I'll grant that one. That's yeah.
Like, she looks like a flying ace.
Hey, with her athleticism and competence, she could pull it off. I'd believe her. And like, if she told me I am from Edwards Air Force Base, I'm not just like I'm going back there because I obviously belong there, I'd be like, okay. But my what the fuck was this government think tank, their logo, did they rip off the maze from Westworld?
I mean, the Westworld would be ripping off their maze, because that maze is not in the original Westworld.
Huh, so again, another inspiration.
Yeah, for sure. I'm telling you guys, I'm not saying that this is the most significant episode of your podcast that's ever happened, but, you're welcome.
I will say that. I think there's been a lot of revelations here.
It's like, this is like, we're like temporal archaeologists. We're like discovering the 80s on this show.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, this is highly recommended. I don't know a lot of people that are familiar with this one, but they definitely should be. It's a great 80s flick that doesn't get the recognition it deserves, so
yeah, and it's streamable. It's got a great Blu-ray release. It's all over the place, so it's relatively easy to get a hold of, which is nice.
Yeah. And if you don't want to go through any trouble of getting this a Blu-ray or anything like this, like, guys, it's on YouTube, the whole thing. Shh.
Oh, really?
Don't tell anyone. Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, you definitely check it out. This I'm going to make it my mission right now to educate as many people as I can about Night of the Comet. So, yeah.
The Lord's work.
Mm-hmm.
The Comet Lord's work. Oh, that would have. I wonder if that would have made the movie better or not, to have like the race of like zombie zealots that like are worshiping, like saw the comet as like their big revelation, or their transcendence.
That's the sequel.
That would be a remake, and it would have like that Applewhite guy, but he would be like the zombie lord, and he's like, "I told you."
Oh, that's actually really. I have a feature script I've been working on for a few years now that is very reminiscent of Night of the Comet, and actually I kind of like that idea of like the zombie cult leader guy. That's real fun. I might steal that actively.
Ooh.
You heard it here first, folks.
As long as you call him Reverend King, I'll be happy.
All right, that's definitely fair.
Okay, so Mike, I have to say, I'm very curious about what you have selected tonight. I honestly don't know what I would choose, but I'm sure you have selected a good one.
Oh, yes. My kill of the week. I'd have to say, in a movie this interesting, I gotta say, simply, the best kill is the first one, not the mass one caused by the comet. The first personal kill we get when when washed up Marty McFly goes outside and gets killed by Tyrone Biggums, simply because I was just like, God damn, it's Tyrone Biggums.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
Yeah, for sure.
It is just too awesome to give to any other movie, because there are good kills. Like Chakotay, I don't know, like he somehow like rigged dynamite to the ignition system of Jeeps.
That truck explosion is way cooler than it has any right to be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, especially when it it's like a fire sprays outward and then comes back towards the vehicle at one point. I'm just like, is that like boomerang flame? Like, what the fuck is happening here?
Oh, we imported that Australian fire.
Oh, there are so many prominent kills, like when Willie gets wasted by the military, but no, it is absolutely Dave Chappelle's prominent crackhead Tyrone Biggums taking out this guy one shot with a pipe wrench.
Taking out washed up Marty McFly. I feel like that collection of words altogether is pretty great.
I got a gift.
Real wordsmith over here.
And then when he makes his second appearance and he just gets his ass kicked by this girl. So Tyrone, like, best zombie, We don't know what happens to him. Pretty sure he dissolves in like a couple of hours, but
I think he becomes Big Daddy in Land of the Dead.
Oh. Yes. Oh my God.
I believe it.
No,
So, yeah, that is it. What about you, Carl? Did you have a prominent kill?
It's weird because it's such a not like kill-based horror movie, which you don't really realize is weird until you think about it at all.
Mhm.
I definitely feel like both of the pieces with fake Tyrone Bigham are probably two of the most memorable moments in the show. I'm trying to think of the other, and then I like Mary Warnov's like scene with Chakotay. Like I think that's a nice back and forth. I think the scene where you think that Kelly Maroney got killed is truly devastating.
Oh,
yeah.
That immediately went into a dislike until I found out she was alive, and I'm just like, well, I gotta scratch that off the list now. Samantha's alive again. Woo!
Yeah, it's funny. Like you don't realize how like involved you've become with that character until like somebody's just like really passively killing her, and you're just like, oh shit, this is nightmarish.
Yeah. Fun fact there, the original script for this movie had Samantha dying in it about midway through.
I can see that.
So, yeah.
This was like our scene from Zombie with like the eye coming towards the wood. And I'm just like, no.
God, I love that scene.
Oh, so that is iconic, as I believe Mike called it when we covered that movie.
No, I
Zombie rules.
said having long hair on a zombie infested island was a bad idea.
Yeah, it was some really bad cheesy joke that I loved.
AKA my forte.
Yes.
I was watching the film on a trip to Iran. It was a difficult trip. It was complicated.
Yeah, it turns out that bringing that movie violated some censorship laws. It led to an unpleasant experience I'd rather not get into right now.
I do believe the movie Zombie is all one censorship law. They're like, don't show this movie.
Oh, well, that is all the movie coverage we have this week, but we're not done quite yet because we want to hear from you. You have a movie suggestion, question, comment, warning about a comet that's going to wipe out all life on the planet? Well, you got several ways to contact us. You can do it the old-fashioned way by emailing us at graveyardshiftpod@gmail.com. You can reach out to us on Twitter at GYS_horrorpod. Or you could get us on Facebook at facebook.com/thegraveyardshiftpod. If a financial donation is something that you can handle, we can certainly take some money off your hands through www.patreon.com/graveyard. But of course, not everyone has the money to give us money, but you can still help us out a ton by rate, review, and subscribing on iTunes. And you can also check us out on Google Play and Stitcher. So I want to thank our guest, Kyle Clark. You were awesome. Thank you so much for doing this with us tonight.
Thank you very much. Oh, I remembered a thing that I would love to plug because it's Canada related.
Oh, please do.
I will actually be doing my first international stand-up sets in Canada in next year in 2018. In March 22, 23, 24. I will be at the Yukon Comedy Festival. If you search Yukon Comedy Festival, you can find out how to get tickets for it. It's going to be pretty cool. It's got a really amazing lineup of people I'm not allowed to talk about. But if you're in Canada and you've enjoyed my bullshit and you can get to the Yukon territory, which I assume means you're a wolf who found an iPhone, then please come on down and tell them that you're a fan. You know, you found out through the Graveyard Shift, and I'll be like, oh, that thing.
Oh, yeah, those guys. Whatever happened to those guys anyway?
I'll be like, oh, is Sheldon okay? And they'll be like, no, you haven't heard the tragedy? And I'm like, what? No, what happened? And I can't tell you anymore because I'm predicting the future.
He was going on vacation in Iran and for some reason decided to take a DVD of Zombie with him, and it's a whole thing. Yeah, so Kyle, and if anyone wanted to find out more about you, other than your upcoming comedy, Trek, and your podcast, how could they do that?
I am at Kyle Clark is Rad on Twitter and Instagram. I'm an easy follow because I don't post a bunch, but if you ask me a question, I'm gonna respond. So at Kyle Clark is Rad.
Awesome. And Mike, if people wanted to hear more of your sweet, seductive voice, how could they do that?
Well, you can check out www.playingwithpowerpodcast.com to hear me and two Americans that aren't Kyle talk about Nintendo Power Magazine, except for the one time when there was Kyle.
Man, it was real fun giving your co-host hell. I'll say, Sheldon, you are a class act. Those guys were a bunch of rapscallions talking about Nintendo that way.
I'm going to be taking this clip and sending it to them several times a day.
Well, it's those damn Arizonans. What do you expect?
And they're going to look at you and go like, God, he's sending us that we were rapscallions. He just found a way to be more Canadian.
I'm outraged. You called me a rapscallion. I'm outraged. And once I Googled rapscallion, I'm even more outraged.
And then you grab a Molson's and go like, you're just lucky I didn't call you a rascal, eh?
Damn Canadians and their oddly 20s vocabulary. Okay, guys. Well, this has been fantastic. Kyle, thanks again so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This was an absolute delight.
Oh, I just remembered one little post thing. Interesting bit of trivia that we didn't talk about. The what was that lady that you talked about? The one that played White?
Oh, Mary Warnock.
Yeah, she was referenced earlier in this movie. When they were in the movie house, they had posters for Death Race 2000.
Oh,
guess who was in it?
Yes. I meant to say that too. Yeah. Which is another movie that you guys should totally cover because it's an amazing movie.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah. So you'd think that in this movie they'd be like, "Hey, you look like the chick from Death Race," because clearly Death Race exists in this universe.
But I assume, not unlike in Last Action Hero, a different factory girl from Warhol plays her character in Death Race in that universe. The same way Stallone played the Terminator in the world where Jack Slater exists and Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't.
And one last thing that the theater...
I wish this was the first podcast I've done where Last Action Hero came up as an explanation for something. What is my life? What is happening?
Yeah, that's what you get for talking to Canadians. So the last reference that the movie theater gives us when the guy's leaving is the marquee, the poster on the door is an old movie. I think it said Hedy Lamarr or Cary Grant, and it said Red Dust. Yeah. That was the name of the movie. And guess what's outside in the world? Boom. This movie knows what just shows how awesome every part of the thinking was in this movie. Even just the background shit was telegraphing.
No, absolutely. Yep. We could go on forever. There's so much stuff in this movie. It's so good. Yeah, guys, just stop listening to us and just go watch it. Just
do it.
Turn off this podcast right now. Go watch it and enjoy. Okay, so thanks again to our guest, Kyle Clark. Thank you, Mike. And you guys go watch this movie, enjoy it, and come back see us again next time on The Graveyard Shift.